Hello, wonderful women. I'm back again, and this time with the most wonderful Pippa Alexander. Now, you are going to spend a few seconds looking at the wonderful Pippa, poor Pippa, before she even gets a chance to talk, because I'm talking. I want to introduce my second in my interview series of how women take advantage and seize the opportunity that the menopause years bring us to redefine their lives. And the reason you're looking at Pippa and not me is because I still look like I've been fighting and I'm too vain to film myself. But next week, don't worry, you'll get a glimpse of me again. So, what I'm always interested in, as you know, my darling women viewers, is that women need a plan. Women need a plan for their lives. They need to know what their purpose on the planet is, even if it's a bad plan. Any plan is better than no plan. That you need to seize the opportunities of this phase of life brings us, because you usually stop child rearing and people pleasing, which is it is related to hormone estrogen. So I was very lucky actually that 2 years ago I had the chance to interview Pippa, and I was completely rubbish on the technology as usual, so I did this wonderful audio, which of course I can't even upload now, but I do have a transcript for you. Now you'll have to listen to that or read the transcript. It'll be somewhere on the page, because what Pippa did was she shared some really interesting tips on how she got through the perimenopause phase and how that phase in life made her really make some massive life changes. Now, I'm not going to tell you what they are. You're going to have to listen to the interview from 2 years ago, but it was quite incredible, and I'm full of admiration for Pippa, who's a businesswoman here in Dar es Salaam where we live. So, with no more ado, what I want to do is ask Pippa, okay Pippa, 2 years on, how have you continued to live your purpose? And maybe you could just sort of outline what it is you've been doing in the last 2 years, starting with what your purpose in your life now is.
Thank you, Deborah, for the lovely introduction. I think it does take 2 years, actually, for the dust to settle once you decide what you're going to do, to start to put plans into place. So since I decided to look at my future and the most comfortable way I could go into it, which is of course with financial independence.
Yes, excellent.
Very importantly for the choice, just enough to have the choice, you know, not stacks. You don't need stacks of money, but and I thought a slow trickle for me of money would be better than one big lump.
Sure.
So luckily for me, I've inherited some property from my lovely dad, and oh, that's the one in Ibiza. So no, I'm talking about the wrong one. Actually, from my divorce, I'm getting confused. The one in London, the flat.
Yeah.
And instead of sell it outright, which I could have done, which I had an option to do, just decided to rent it. And it seems at a glance to be much less money when you rent it than when you sell it outright, because it's quite valuable. But I'd rather have that trickling in, and then you've got a secondary plan that you can live there.
Yes, of
you
course.
know, so that's lovely. Whereas if you sell it, I don't know, it's a lot of money, but not enough that you could live on it.
Sure.
So I'm very aware that at the moment, which I wasn't a couple of years ago, that a little bit of money can dissipate very easily.
Yes.
Actually, really been aware of that.
Yes.
I never really thought about it before, because in the position I was before, it was always coming in without me even thinking about it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now I have to think, where's it going to come from next? So for me, the slow trickle of rental income would be brilliant. So the flat in London is my starter. I've only been doing that for a few months. And I'm hoping to get another small flat somewhere to get another rental income. So just going back to what you asked me, Deborah, that's my plans for financial security.
Right.
If I'm clever enough to get it in the right place, that it doesn't devalue, you know, with the markets going here, there and everywhere. And so I'm just taking time deciding where.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really, really good, because actually I think that's something I haven't personally, and I haven't added this into my workshops, but it's interesting you mentioned financial security, because I think all women, you know, of whatever age, should always have a financial plan and in some shape or form. And I think as older women, we need to be even more savvy to make sure that the financial security can give us that lifestyle that we're able to choose, because I think certainly you don't want to be, well, like you've chosen not to work in an office, 9 to 5 for, 40 years and end up with, I think that can be quite detrimental to health actually. And I think as we age, we need to be much more savvy about our health, and age really, really well. I mean, I think that's a really important aspect, and obviously you've given that a great deal of thought, and I think that's really, really interesting. And so if we then take that into, kind of extend that aspect of your life that you've been managing, more carefully, as you said, than before, what would you say your overall purpose on the planet is? Because I think that gives us, even if it's just, a couple of sentences, it gives us that sort of vision piece to our lives that I think makes getting up every day a bit easier.
Well, I think, Deborah, because I've got... Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question and it's not easy to answer, but because I still have responsibilities of my son, okay, he's 25, but still children may always need you, so I've got to think about him too, and I've got to be comfortable enough that I can help him.
Yes, of
so
course.
That's my main purpose, is to make me comfortable enough that I can do the things I want to do, but help the people I want to help.
Lovely, yeah.
I mean, it seems a bit of a dream. You have to be quite comfortable to be able to do that. And I mean, by comfortable, I don't mean necessarily wealthy.
No, sure.
I mean confident of what you've put in place, that you're able to relax a bit and help people that need your help, or help your family, or have time to spend time with someone without worrying about the next thing you're trying to do. That, to me, is what the financial security brings. It allows you to relax a bit about that aspect, which is major, because if you don't have money, you can't make any choice to help someone, or to have time off, or to visit anywhere, or just to kick back. So that's why that's so important. So you can relax and enjoy life, basically. It's a bit of a throwaway comment, but that's what it brings you eventually.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on, and I think you're right. I mean, people sort of do tend to think, oh gosh, enjoy life and happiness, and it sounds sort of selfish and shallow, but I don't think it is, because I think, world peace, which I think is obviously should be the goal of everybody. I mean, world peace starts with each individual, and if you are a happy and caring person, then that is a process of...
you pass it on. In your daily experiences, people, hopefully, I mean, myself, I'm inspired by people I meet. I mean, it doesn't happen often, but you can spend time with someone and you leave feeling better and you think, wasn't that lovely? And something they've said to you implement into your life. So hopefully, what you just said, you can have an effect on other people, and then they can implement it, and one person does make a difference then.
Yeah, exactly.
It has a really positive knock-on effect.
Yes. Well, I think you do that, because I know, from knowing you, particularly in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, I mean, I think, it sounds, again, silly, but I think just always being kind and polite to everybody you meet is actually huge. If you think about how much better the world would be if only that happened, if everybody just managed that, because we're running around like stress-crazed idiots and, shouting and barking and just being generally very stupid. A lot of humans do that, really. So I think not doing that is fantastic.
But do you know what, Deborah? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to say that when I do snap at people, if I'm unkind, it's pressure from other people that makes me do it. If I'm on my own and my head's clear, I will never lose my temper or have a snap at someone. I mean, I do it. Everybody does it. But it's usually other people pressurising me, or maybe somebody's cutting me up in the car and got the hand on the hooter. It's outside, too much outside stimulus that makes you snap.
That's very interesting, and I also, one thing I love, which I will give away to our darling, wonderful women viewers, but they still have to read the transcript or listen to the audio, because it's a very powerful piece, is that you have been very clever in crafting your days to avoid putting yourself in that position. Oh, yeah. Because certainly, personally, I've worked a lot on that in the last couple of years, because I used to just run from one thing to another. And it just makes you stressed and unhealthy, actually. So I've always admired that about you. I mean, Pippa, just there was 2 things that we chatted about yesterday when you were just sort of giving this interview some thought. And I think after the financial independence bit, which I think that you've shared with us, which was really great, there were 2 other things which I just wondered if you could talk about. I mean, you mentioned something that, is part of your, 10-year plan, your greater plan to be on this planet was also the personal independence and having personal strength. I just wondered if you could give our our viewers a couple of sentences on each, because I think that they were very interesting, the way you've thought through how you're managing your life in that way.
Thank you, Deborah. I think that the thinking through, I have to talk about the menopause now, because to me, it was about 3 years ago I menopaused, and instantly I wanted to fight back, go on HRT, do something to stop it. And then I realised, having spoken to loads of people, that if you stop it in its tracks now, okay, this doesn't work for everybody, because you've got very pressurised lives. You have to think other ways, you know. But for me, I did have the luxury of being able to relax a little bit, and you know, Jack was in university, so he wasn't at home, and I sort of freed myself of the major stresses in my life, so I was able to sit back and think, shall I ride this out, which I decided to do, but with that has come calmness. Somehow,
fantastic.
Yes,
Yeah, no,
because
it's fantastic.
and I mean, it wasn't very calm for 18 months, but it's, I think your body adapts, and I really feel like mine has, as far as hormones are concerned, and I feel very calm now, a little bit, I suppose, like I did when I was a teenager, or in my early 20s.
That's wonderful.
You know, you're just sort of hell-bent on enjoying life, and your head's not full of, oh, but maybe this, maybe that, you know, no anxiety when you're that age. I find it very similar to that.
Well, it's the no people pleasing anymore, but I think that might be the difference.
That's also a decision,
Menopause is that you can step into greatness, because one of the things I do love about, you know, when you get into your 50s is that you care less about how others view you. Put it that way. It doesn't mean that you ride roughshod over people, but you don't, because you have that wisdom and experience, I think, that you bring to situations.
Yeah, you do. You care what others think of you, but I'm very aware that the only way really that I can know myself is how other people respond to me, because I've always believed that everyone you meet is your mirror. So whilst, I mean, I'll be polite, and sometimes people just take an exception to another person. If someone takes an exception to me, it doesn't happen often actually, or naturally our paths just won't cross again, or we'll say, hello, how are you, and leave it at that. I mean, it's like knowing if you've got something in common with someone almost.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do, absolutely. I do, absolutely. Look, that's it. We're on our 12 and 24, 25, 26 seconds and counting. Pippa, I will interview again, maybe not 2 years, maybe we'll do 1 year, but I really can't thank you enough for sharing your sort of insights, and I think that this interview will certainly give lots of women and lots of food for thought, and particularly be insightful in some of the ways that you've managed your life now you're through the turbulence of perimenopause. And good luck with your property portfolio.
Oh, thank you, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Pippa.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you too. Bye, Deborah.